This is RJ Carbone, and you're listening to BD4.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes
this
down.
One by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the
RJ Barrett does it again from downtown.
He is just tearing the Orioles apart.
It's good. It's good. Randall gets the bounce, and he ties the game.
Houston ducks under. Got it. With 8 left.
Up and ran. Slam the other way for Aaron Judge.
Penetrates, creates, and showing some dexterity as well with the left hand.
Yankees win. The Yankees win.
All right, what's happening, everybody? Episode 282 of the podcast tonight. I'm your host, RJ Carbone, and you are listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yeah, episode 282. If you are new here and you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. You can subscribe to this podcast on the many platforms that we are on. You can listen to us on, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, many other listening platforms. And if you want to watch the podcast, you can subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. So if you like listening, go to any one of those listening platforms. If you want, give us a 5-star review, 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. And if you love us, download the podcast so you have it forever in your phone. Yeah, welcome. Hope everybody's having a good night. It is a Tuesday night as I am recording, Tuesday, September 7th, which means it's week 2 of Dana White's Contender series. Now, I've been so sidetracked. I've been doing homework, watching the Yankees, and I have the Contender series on my tablet. Well, I did. So I was multitasking 3 different things at once, and I hate doing that. So I can't really focus. So I wasn't really watching the Contender series tonight. It's on the phone right here. I'm actually watching it on my phone, but I'm not even paying attention. I was watching the Yankees lose, and they continued to play miserably. We might take a break from the Yankees tomorrow night. And again, tomorrow night is probably tonight as you are listening to this episode. As in the Blue Jays series, we might skip that and just take a break. No reason, just a little overworked here. But as for this episode 282, we're going to continue to just talk about the upcoming season when it comes to the Knicks. That's what we're doing tonight. Just discussing the kind of a little bit more, continuing what we where we left off in the last Knicks episode, which I believe was episode 280. This is 282. Just kind of talking more about some certain players and what to expect. So we're going to get into that, but yeah, the Contender series last week was great. I loved it. Record-breaking. 5 guys signed contracts. So I don't know how many contracts Dana's going to hand out tonight, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be 5. But yeah, I wish I paid more attention to it tonight. I didn't get to see much at all. But it seems like it's another good one. We'll see. But I have to check on the card this weekend, though. Because I know last weekend was a good fight card. There's another fight card coming up. We might have a few more before we actually get to the next pay-per-view event. But I'm pretty sure this one coming up is a good one, too. It's a shame that Darren Till lost. Everybody's a big Darren Till fan. It sucks to see him go down like that. But, yeah, I have to check to see who's this Saturday. This Saturday is going to be a tough day. It's I'm pretty sure it's September 11th on Saturday. But yeah, man, thank you for stopping by, and let's get to it. Let's not waste time. Let's just talk a little bit Knicks, and when we get back from break, we may as well get right into it. So one last time, guys, if you haven't subbed to this podcast, be sure to do that. We do Yankees episodes every series, and we do Knicks episodes every 2 games when they are in season. And I also recap the Yankees in the blog. Usually I'll do it on a nightly basis. This year I've missed a lot of games. I'm doing more series recaps, but I haven't done a blog in forever, so I apologize for my absence. Same goes for the Knicks. We were supposed to do daily recaps in the blog once the season begins then. But sub to my blog. It's my opinion. Sub to this podcast, BD4. And if you haven't yet followed me on social media, you can go ahead and do that too. So we're going to head to break. When we get back, we'll get right to it. Stay with us. You are listening to RJ Carbone on BD4. If you haven't yet subscribed to this podcast, you can do that right now. BD4 is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and you can also watch it on YouTube. There are plenty of other platforms to find this podcast. All you have to do is go to linktr.ee/RJ Carbone, and that will take you to where you need to be. linktr.ee/RJ Carbone in order to subscribe to this podcast. Yeah, no, I was just took about 5 minutes there to check out the results here. Dana's announcing the rest of the or he's announcing who he's handing out contracts to. I'm pretty sure, I don't know. I think he just handed out 5 again. It's funny though, he just took a few minutes, he took a few shots rather at DC for some of the comments he made during the telecast. I guess he didn't agree with, but I'm looking down every couple of seconds because I'm just watching the rest of this, but I don't know why, because the sound is off and there are no more fights. It's over. But some kid, Oliveira, wonder if there's any relation. He made it. The first fighter did, Chad something, I forget the kid's name, and a few other guys made it too. So it's always fun watching the Contender series, man. You got a bunch of hungry kids looking for a payday, looking for a UFC contract. So hopefully next week I can actually watch week 3, and I'll have more thoughts on you for that. But yeah, no, as for this episode 282, we're talking Knicks, so why waste any more time? And again, a few episodes ago, we talked some Knicks. It was like the first episode in a little bit. So just kind of going to continue to discuss what we were discussing the other night, pick up where we left off, maybe touch on a few other things. Not going to be a long episode. I'm hoping it's no longer than 25 minutes, half an hour maybe. But yeah, the season's going to be here before you know it, man. It is going to be here before you know it, right? It's already, as I am speaking, September 7th. As you are listening, it's September 8th. So preseason starts in a little bit over a month, maybe exactly a month now. And then later down the line in October, I think the 23rd, don't quote me on that, that's when the regular season begins. And we're off to the races. You know, I'm excited. It was a tremendous season last year considering the expectations that the Knicks had. Brought in a new coach, get an old school guy, coach this younger team, you know, in a newer era of basketball, and it worked. You have the old school mentality that Thibodeau brought in of defense first, play hard or you don't play at all. And it paid off. It worked. Guys were playing hard. And are there some flaws in this team? Yes. We're going to talk about that more as we get into the season and stuff. But you have to like what you saw last year, considering that they had key pieces being hurt, you know, like Mitchell Robinson. And they were still able to do what they did. And speaking of Robinson, we'll start with him really quickly. You know, the Knicks are probably going to try and extend Mitchell Robinson before the deadline. That's probably it. My thought is if they don't do it, if they don't try and extend him and we're approaching the deadline and he still hasn't signed the extension, I'm thinking they're going to try and package him. Or if they do try and extend him and Mitchell Robinson says no, the Knicks probably won't want him to walk for nothing in the offseason next summer. And so they'll probably try to package him as the headliner in some kind of deal, right? You have the thought that, this kid Jericho Sims, who raised a lot of eyebrows in summer league, and obviously Noel, you just handed him he's being paid. He's getting paid. A 3-year deal they gave him just last month, playing behind Mitchell Robinson. So you keep that in mind. And remember, the Knicks, keep this in mind too, the Knicks could have, they didn't though. They could have made Robinson a restricted free agent, but they didn't do it. They also have the money to go big on him if they wanted to. And you look back, I just don't know. I don't feel like his future is secure here. Just looking at all the telltale signs, and you're also looking back at his career up to this point. Has he progressed in a lot of areas? Yeah. But you look at it closely, especially when you consider the offensive game. Are they really working to develop his game? Like, are they doing anything to expand his game? Has he been a different player since day one to today? Or does he have the same label, right? He kind of has the same label. And I get the Tiger's never going to change his stripes, but other than maybe screen setting, right? And obviously he's cut down on fouls, and he's improved. I'm not saying he's not improved. He's improving. But I'm saying adding some offense, we don't see him working on a post game. We don't see him work on a mid-range jumper or that three-point shot, right? We see videos of Mitch screwing around with his handles and crossovers and shooting threes, but never in the game we see that. And I feel like we don't ever see it mentioned in a serious manner with the Knicks. I feel like they're not working at that. They're not working to expand his game and make him better. So yeah, for me, I love Mitch. I'm a big Mitch guy. I would go as high as 4 years, $60 million. That's probably what I'd throw at him. Tops. Anything more than that, I would think about packaging him. Obviously, Miles Turner has been a big name. A lot of Knicks fans like him. A lot of the NBA likes him. This is a shot blocking extraordinaire who's developed a name for himself over the last couple of seasons with Indiana. But how much? It's just going to come down to how much would you be paying? How much would you be willing, the Knicks that is, to pay a defensive-minded, more traditionally styled big in this era of ball, right? And as for now, both Mitch and Noel are here, obviously. And, it's just, I don't know. I don't feel like the Knicks are that serious. I feel like they're more open. I think that's probably the best way to put it. They're open-minded when it comes to Robinson. They're not opposed to making a trade if they have to. But they're also willing to keep him if they can come to an agreement and the negotiations don't get too rough. Excuse me. But yeah, as for right now, both Mitch and even Noel are here. And with Mitch just getting out of the walking boot not even 2 or 3 weeks ago, they're probably going to ease him into it, right? I expect the first portion of the season to be more 50-50 split in between the two's playing time. Hopefully, if Mitch can stay healthy and as the season progresses, we see him start to take more of the role. But yeah, once Mitch is, fully healthy, man, I think you got to start him, obviously, and see if you can get him to play 30 minutes a game for you. That's, he had a big minutes uptick last year when he was healthy. I think he was playing around 28 minutes a night. If you could try to get him to 30, 33 minutes, I don't think, with his frame, that he's ever going to log you 35 to 40 minutes like Thibodeau's doing with Barrett and Randall. That's not who Robinson's going to be. He seems to wear down a little more because he's very thin, real thin, and he's big, tall. But if you can get him playing 30 to 33 minutes a night, more on the 33 side, I think Mitch will be, I think he could be a great big for you, man. I still have so much optimism when it comes to him. I believe in his game. I think he's so much more effective than Noel, just because he can move around defensively and guard the perimeter so well, right? He can also navigate that drop defense. He's much better off those ball screens and pick and roll than Noel is. Noel is more of a standstill in the paint guy. Going to put his hands up and get those stationary blocks. And we saw Noel's lack of mobility sort of get exposed in the playoffs this past season, right? Against Atlanta. Whenever he was switched on to Trey would take advantage of that like crazy. He would draw contact on his way to the rim. He would go around a screen. He would just get a shot up on him. But if you have a healthy Mitchell Robinson, however, he's more mobile and lengthy and, you know, has done a nice job of positioning himself well over these last over the last season. Which that helps in that drop coverage, right? Not only is it the length that he can use to contest and block shots, but that length he has, that wingspan Mitch has, can force ball handlers like Trae Young to pick up their dribble early. You know, things you don't always see on the stat sheets. And I still do, as much as we talk about and criticize his offensive game, Robinson, I still feel, while not great right now, there's still a ceiling there to where he can one day average close to or at 15 points per game, given that athleticism and that length. I still think that's it. He's excellent in pick and roll, right? We know his pick and roll game is strong. He can get to the rim easily. He can get around guys, get around other bodies, because he's long and athletic. And we've seen him just kind of bulldoze his way there off the ball sometimes. So I still think that now, given he has a point guard to play with, he has a bunch of playmakers, but he's got a good point guard in Kemba Walker to feed him. I think he could eventually get you that 15 points per game, or at least start his third season, or will it be his fourth season with a double-double? You know, maybe he could get, if he can crack the double-digit point totals on a night-to-night basis, start going from there, right? So I'm excited for him this season, man. I think he'll be motivated. I know he's put on muscle. He put something on Twitter, or somebody did. I think it was Bondi, that he, I think he's 272 pounds. He was listed at 240 last season. So he's looking for a payday, man. And my hope is that he remains healthy and he can finally give us those double-double numbers that we're looking for, along with the great defense, and that the Knicks and him can figure out a way to come to an agreement in some kind of deal. Again, I would go 4 years, $60 million. I would be careful going any higher than that. Let me do the AAV really quick on that. 60 divided by 4, obviously that's 15, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't go any higher than 15 a year. I mean, you've seen guys like Capella, Williams, and the other kid, drawing a blank, getting these big contracts. You figure Mitch right now, with his potential, you know, his first contract, yeah, I wouldn't go higher than that, but I would not mind handing him something like that, in that ballpark. So, I'm excited to see what he does. I am. We're going to head to break. When we get back, we'll talk a little more of this team and touch on Kevin Knox for a second. Stay with us. You can follow me on Facebook at r.j.carbone. You can follow me on Instagram at robjcarbone. And you can follow me on Twitter at NYSportsTalkRC. And if you want to follow along with the blog that I write, subscribe to It's My Opinion on nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com. Yeah, this is one we actually missed. I meant to get to it, but never did, never could. On in episode 280. 280? Yeah. We never got to it. Another guy who could be traded before his contract expires. Kevin Knox. You know, another Knicks lottery pick who hasn't exactly panned out, and trading him would kind of continue to live around that narrative, you know, of it's just another lotto guy who doesn't get a second contract. But you got to do what you got to do. He's just not playing with the Knicks. He's not getting playing time, and he's not really shown them much when he does get playing time. You know, there was hope that he could be something. Some people are still thinking he is something. It's funny because when he got drafted, I was so excited. I was foolishly giving him labels like Paul George, Kevin Durant. And I wasn't saying that was his ceiling, but I was saying the type of player he could be of that mold. And then a few seasons go by, and last year I caught myself kind of tempering my expectation on Knox, and I relegated him to, all right, well, maybe he could be more of a Steve Novak type, sit in the corner and flame throw from three. And he was doing that, to be honest with you. At the start of the year, he was having a very effective season. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I'll give him that. Until Tom Thibodeau stopped playing him, he was actually doing well in the corners, being that kick-out guy. But he stopped playing, and he kind of got sporadic minutes, and it affected him. And the defense has never been good with Knox. The motor has always been an issue in question. So, just 22 years old, I believe, and he's just not very good right now. So any team could pick him up, contending or not, big market or not, just to see what they have in him, right? It wouldn't hurt. And that team also gets his restricted free agent rights, so they have control over him at a fair price for the foreseeable future. And you're thinking, you know, if we could figure out a way to get him out of here, could we find a way to, you know, considering we have a pretty savvy front office, Leon Rose, Brock Aller, Walt Perrin, Scott Perry, could these guys figure out a way to net the Knicks an early second-round pick if we were to deal Kevin Knox? And we've seen what these guys in the front office do with those second-round picks, right? They turn it into another deal, or they bring in another type of lightning in a bottle, diamond in a rough type of player. That could be one thing. But he just, again, there's, I'm about to sneeze here. Excuse me. But as I was saying, there's just no room. It's just as simple as that. There's just no room for Kevin Knox on this roster. We've actually seen the experiment playing him at the 2. That's a nightmare. He's not quick enough for the 3 either. He's just not quick enough. His best spot probably is to just play the stretch 4. But again, that position's crowded already. Obviously, we've got Julius starting. That's not changing. He was just extended. Obi Toppin, I mean, that's an issue itself, right? So, you know, you consider Obi Toppin. I mean, had Julius Randle not went off like he did in year 1 with the Knicks, I'm sorry, I worded that incorrectly. Had Julius Randle went off like he did last year in year 1 with the Knicks, Obi's not a Knick right now. Obi is playing somewhere else. Simple as that. The reason Obi Toppin was drafted, he was supposed to be Julius's successor, right? Let's be honest. That's why he was drafted. They didn't draft a guy like Obi Toppin in the lottery after a year of tanking and miserable play to just have him sit on the bench the rest of his career and be a second-string player. No. They drafted him because they thought this guy was going to be their power forward for the foreseeable future. They thought he was going to be the guy. They were planning on kicking Julius to the curb and dealing him at the deadline last season, but obviously that didn't happen. Julius overachieved, and that's not even a good word. Julius started playing really well, and he's our guy now. And as for Obi Toppin, I think the Knicks, I wouldn't trade him. Listen, I was saying all of last year, trade him. I think you have to be smart here, and you try to hang on to him, at least for the first half of the season this year, just to try and build some trade value. Right? You never sell low, right? You always hear that. You never want to sell low. So if they can keep him, honestly though, I wouldn't be too mad about keeping Obi for this season either, just the entire season, have him build his trade value, and then you can deal him in the summer. And it would also help, right? Julius had to log so many minutes last year because we didn't have a reliable backup power forward. If Obi Toppin can be something, if he can show that he's improved, right? And we use him more, and we can play him more. And he starts hitting those spot-up threes, and he continues to show some promise as a roll man, and coming off those short rolls from the short corner, throwing those lobs down. And he gets going on the open court, right? Does all the things that we saw him do at Dayton. I know it was weak competition, but the reason he was drafted is because he can do all these types of things. It would be helpful to have someone like that take the burden off of Julius. Right? How fun would that be if Obi Toppin turned out to be pretty decent and we had a nice, reliable role player to back up Julius? And then you have so many options with that. You could net a really good return in the summer if you have Obi go out there and put up a good season. And now we also talked about in episode 280 a little bit about Kemba and Fournier, the new arrivals, new weapons here. Their chemistry is good. They played, these are two players from the same team. They didn't play a ton together, but they did play with Boston. And that's always a plus from the start, right? I think they played nine games together. But still, it's always a plus from the start to have two guys who have some type of chemistry come in, together. And when they were playing with Boston, I was watching some film with them, some highlights. It seems like they play off each other pretty well. They know where each other are on the floor. They know where to find each other, off the ball, on the ball. Bullock was a decent cutter, but Fournier can do that. Fournier can cut while playing the 1, the 2, and he can play a little bit of the 3. And the Knicks, they're still getting shooting in Fournier. The Knicks love the corner threes. They love corner threes. That was Thibodeau's shot. The Knicks shot a ton of corner threes. Evan Fournier can hit that corner 3. Kemba Walker hit the corner 3 at an average rate last year. I think he was 39% from the corner. So you've got 4 guys now who can run the break in the starting lineup. Kemba, Fournier, RJ, and Julius. You're hoping that can get them going more and play at a faster pace. Right? Kemba's ability to draw defenders in to help in penetration opens up those perimeter shooters. And you also have guys like McBride, Grimes, and Rose who can do the same. Play that driving kick game. Just play a little bit of a faster pace. I would like to see that from Tom Thibodeau. Fournier is a good playmaker. I think he'll also work well in pick and roll with Mitchell Robinson. Gonna come off DHOs. L cuts when he's at the 2. So the point guard depth, man, that's one thing that I think is going to be beautiful. It's such a day-night difference last season and this upcoming season in the point guard rotation. Like, Kemba, Rose, that's fire. You have Kemba at the 1, Rose at the 1 to back him up. That's an upgrade from Peyton Rose. And remember, Rose was only here a half a season with the Knicks last year. So you've got a full season of Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose. It's going to be fun at point guard if it goes as expected. If they can stay healthy, that's obviously a big risk. It's going to be a lot of load management. Maybe you're going to see some days where Derrick Rose gets spot starts, especially on back-to-backs. But yeah, if they stay healthy, I'm excited for the point guard. point guard's going to be a position where I think the Knicks are finally going to have some success. And that's such an important position, right? It's the catalyst on the floor. That's your quarterback. It's your orchestrator. Your point guard plays well, you get a lot of other guys playing well. You always hear about the term making others better. Make your teammates better. That's the point guard's job. And now we have somebody who can actually do that. And Elfrid Payton wasn't just an average point guard. He was a bad point guard for us. So we're going to get a tremendous upgrade there. Does Kemba stay healthy and play up to expectation? So I'm excited for that. We're going to head to break. When we get back from break, it's our last break. Maybe our second to last break. But when we get back, talk a little bit more. Talk about RJ Barrett. I want to touch on him before we wrap this up. And just some of the lineups that he might be paired with. What his role might be. Yada, yada. Stay with us, guys. We'll be right back. All right. And I don't mean to sound like, the overly optimistic guy now, but I'm also excited for RJ year 3. Right? There could be some big things happening with Barrett. He's got some work to do. We know he's got a ton of work to do. The footwork obviously needs some improvement. Now, he's still young. He's got a lot of ways to go. Remember how young this kid is, guys. But, he does have some improving to do. Especially since his athleticism isn't off the charts crazy. His footwork's going to have to improve. He's very good at getting to the basket, right? He's pretty balanced. He's got a solid base, good upper body. But he isn't explosive. Doesn't blow by you. It's just using his craft and his strength. If he can improve his footwork a bit, right, and the triple threat. Now, he's never going to be, that first step, he's never going to be any Carmelo Anthony. Right, but I would like to see him improve his isolation game a little bit. And maybe even, the big thing here, obviously, when we're talking about footwork and everything, is hope to see him add a step back, side step, some kind of shooting off the dribble. And we've seen recent workout videos of Barrett in the gym. Working on a mid-range. Working on his dribbling, working on his shot creating, his playmaking. We've seen these videos, and I'm not one to take these things so serious as a lot of Knicks fans will. A lot of Knicks fans will be in the comments when they see these workout vids and these vids of them in the gym getting up shots, and they go nuts. They either overreact or they overreact. Let's be honest, they overreact. It's crazy. But if he can work at that and he starts shooting more off the dribble and he can be more aggressive going to the rim, more explosive, and if that helps him with his finishing, which he has that in his bag, where does he land with Tibbs? If everything improves, he starts drawing more contact like he did in year 1 with the Knicks. Kind of took a step back there in the free throw department. In terms of attempts, he shot the ball a lot better from the line. But, if he improves, you start thinking to yourself, where does Tom Thibodeau see him? What is his role? RJ Barrett. Behind, obviously, Julius Randle is the given number 1 option, right? He's the guy. But behind Julius, is RJ going to be a 2? Is he going to be a 3? Or is he going to be a 4? Is it going to be based off matchups? But you've got Kemba, you've got Evan Fournier, right? Like I said, more weapons on this team now. Kemba's going to be doing the playmaking. Fournier can be doing a little bit of both playmaking and some shooting. He's your scorer. You can make a case that RJ is a little better than Fournier. Fournier is a little bit better than RJ. You can make your case either way. But when it comes down to it, I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be who plays better. Who has the better season. Those two might be better players right now. So out the gate, we might just go at what it looks like on paper. It might be RJ's the number 4, which I wouldn't be too fond of that if he was just relegated to getting the 4th most shots and touches. I want him to develop properly. So he's going to have to show it. He's going to have to improve his shot creating ability so he can jump higher on that list. And if so, if he does, and he ups his role, and he's used more often, you can throw him in the elbow in isolation more, get him closer to the rim, and post up, and not just use him as the guy he was used last year. You know, he was using a lot of those spot up roles as that catch and shoot guy on the wing in the corners as the kick out option. You know, he was the kick out guy. A lot of catch and shoot threes. 97% of his 3-pointers were off the catch. He only scored 7% of his points in the mid-range last year. So I want to see him add something there on the elbow and the post-up. So if he can, it's going to be a little bit of, you have to work at it. Thibodeau's going to have faith in him, and RJ's going to have to show some stuff here. You know, so can they find that balance between trying to win while we continue to develop our lotto pick? Can they find that balance, right? Is it winning while he's a role player? Right? Winning while he's a 4th option? Or is it going to be, can we win and progress his game at the same time? I'm hoping it could be the latter, right? But there are some things that make you question it now, right? Listen, the Knicks were dead last in possessions last year. They played at a slow pace. They didn't have a lot of possessions. They were dead last in possessions. Now we have 2 more playmakers to this team. So it will not be easy. Can Thibodeau find possessions for RJ so he can be a top option? And I didn't even mention, there's also the fact that, you know, RJ Barrett's going to have to step up defensively even more. Now, he's continued to show promise defensively. I think he's become an average to slightly above average defender in the NBA. But the Knicks as a whole still might take a step back defensively, especially in the starting lineup. Reggie Bullock is gone. Frank Ntilikina is gone. Kemba and Rose aren't great defenders. They can't get around screens very well. We've seen Rose, you know, have issues also in the playoffs playing defense last year. So who fills that void? And I think RJ Barrett's going to have to take it upon himself in the starting lineup to fill that void of defending those scoring wings and those guards. You know, he's going to have to play a lot of that role. I mean, he's the only guy you can think of. You know, there's going to be a lot of, you're going to have to do a lot of team defense, I think, this year, even more so. If the Knicks want to maintain that defense they had last year, that intensity is going to be there, but that just getting stops like they did and placing so high in defensive rating, going to have to be a lot of team defense. Going to have to mix and match with a lot of these lineups. You know, you could also get RJ Barrett some minutes with the bench. Stagger his minutes. You know, Tibbs is not going to do 5-for-5 swaps. He's going to do some stagger. And I think he will stagger RJ and get him with the young guns more. You know, Rose, IQ, Barrett, Obi playing together. Maybe get a look at, you know, IQ, Grimes, and McBride together. Obi at the 4, and maybe Taj or Sims. Hopefully we can get a good look at Sims at the 5. I didn't research too much on this Jericho Sims kid, but from what I know, from what I was reading about, he's got a pretty outstanding combination of size and athleticism. I know he's aggressive and he's bouncy around the rim. I was reading that he's got very sharp and solid instincts and timing as a rim protector. And also that he can switch very well and guard on the perimeter. Kind of like Mitch. But also like Mitch, he doesn't have a jumper. So it's going to be interesting to see how we fit this kid Sims in there. Does Taj last the entire season? Do we try and get a little bit younger with Sims? We'll see. But overall, man, I think that's it. Just, you know, briefly just touching up on a few things and talking about what we just did. RJ Barrett's role, Mitchell Robinson's future, Kevin Knox's future, Obi Toppin, his role, his future. And I'm excited for the season. So, guys, that's it. We are actually going to head to break one last time, but when we get back, we'll get to the NYK question of the day, and we'll wrap this up. Be right back. All right, so last time out, in episode 281, our NYK question of the day was, on August 18th, 1989, who did Bucky Dent replace as the manager of the New York Yankees? And your hint was, the guy he replaced also managed the Phillies to a World Series title in 1980. The answer to that question, on August 18th, 1989, who did Bucky Dent replace as the manager of the Yankees, is Dallas Green. Dallas Green was the guy that Bucky Dent replaced. Now this episode 282, our NYK question of the day, brought to you by Anchor for Ep 281. Or was this 282? Yeah, it says 281 on the screen, but it's supposed to say 282. Right? Yeah, this is episode 282. Our question of the day for 282. True or false? The Knicks have played the most games all time on Christmas Day. True or false? And your hint? They have played in 53 Christmas Day games. Is that the most all time? All right. So let me know the answer to that question, whether that be on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore, really, nowadays. So just let me know in my DMs on Facebook or on Instagram, where you can just comment what you think the answer is once I publish, the little promos that I post. And that's that, guys. If you get it correct, I'll give you a shout out. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't yet subbed to this podcast, subscribe to it, download it. Do that right now. You know where to find us, all those listening platforms. Plus, you can watch us on YouTube. BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. I am your host, RJ Carbone. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the night. I'll see you next time. Ciao. This episode is brought to you by Anchor, podcasting made easy.